Have you ever walked through a garden center, looked at the price tag on a simple bag of compost or a plastic planter, and thought to yourself, there has to be a better way? What if I told you that the secret to tripling your tomato harvest and getting your apple trees to explode with fruit is currently sitting in a dumpster behind your local grocery store? Welcome back to the garden. Today, we are going to talk about a concept that will completely change the way you look at growing food. We are diving into 10 completely free things that stores throw away every single day, which are actually priceless treasures for your vegetable beds and fruit shrubs. I am going to show you how to utilize the ultimate lazy gardening methods to turn this retail waste into pure garden gold. You will learn how to drastically increase your yields while doing a fraction of the physical work. But here is the real kicker. I am going to share a popular myth about one of these items that has probably been ruining your soil for years without you even knowing it. Are you ready to stop paying for things you can get for free? Tell me in the comments right now, what is the most expensive thing you buy for your garden every year? Let us see if we can replace it today. Before we dive into our treasure hunt, we need to understand a very simple biological truth about how plants actually grow. In a natural forest, nobody is driving a tractor to deliver synthetic fertilizer, and nobody is pulling weeds. The forest feeds itself through a continuous cycle of organic matter breaking down. Plants distribute their energy much like the flow of a river, constantly exchanging nutrients with a complex underground network of fungi, bacteria, and earthworms, which we call the soil food web. However, in our modern world, we have broken this cycle. Stores and restaurants pay huge fees to throw away massive amounts of organic materials and useful structures, sending them to landfills. Meanwhile, gardeners drive to specialized stores to buy packaged versions of the exact same nutrients. It makes absolutely no sense. By intercepting these discarded items, we are not just saving money, we are actively closing the loop. We are taking pre-digested plant energy and raw carbon from the commercial world and returning it to our raised beds and orchards, building a resilient, self-sustaining ecosystem that requires almost zero manual labor from you. Let us start with one of the most abundant and overlooked treasures hiding right behind every grocery store or appliance shop in your town. I am talking about plain, brown, corrugated cardboard boxes. Every single day, massive retailers throw away mountains of this precious material, paying companies to haul it off to recycling centers or landfills. Meanwhile, home gardeners are driving to garden centers and spending hundreds of dollars on synthetic landscape fabrics and chemical weed killers. But here is the truth that lazy gardeners already know. Landscape fabric is a disaster for your soil. It blocks natural organic matter from breaking down. It suffocates the earthworms. And eventually, aggressive weeds just grow right through it anyway. Cardboard, on the other hand, is the ultimate secret weapon for a thriving, low-maintenance garden. It is made from wood pulp, meaning it is pure organic carbon. When you use cardboard, you are not just suppressing weeds, you are actively feeding the soil food web. The glue used in modern corrugated boxes is typically starch-based, which earthworms absolutely love. Just remember to spend 2 minutes peeling off any plastic packing tape or shipping labels before you bring it into your sanctuary. This is your first step to never digging a garden bed again. So, how exactly do we use this cardboard to eliminate physical labor? We use a brilliant method called sheet mulching. If you want to start a new vegetable bed or plant a fruit tree in the middle of your lawn, do not waste your weekend breaking your back with a shovel. Simply mow the grass as short as possible. Lay down your free, flattened cardboard boxes so their edges overlap by at least 6 inches, and soak them thoroughly with a hose. This creates an impenetrable barrier that blocks all sunlight, instantly smothering the grass and weeds below. Next, you simply pile your compost or topsoil directly on top of the wet cardboard. That is it. You have just built a new garden bed with zero digging. The cardboard acts like a temporary shield. Over the next few months, the darkness and moisture will attract thousands of earthworms from deep below. They will rise up, consume the dying grass, eat their way right through the softening cardboard, and till the soil for you completely for free. It is like hiring a microscopic army to do your heavy lifting while you sit back and watch your plants thrive. Now let us talk about the second item, which is a massive source of free nitrogen. If you visit any local coffee shop or cafe, you will find them throwing away heavy garbage bags filled with used espresso pucks and coffee grounds. Many gardeners are terrified of using coffee grounds because of a very persistent myth. People believe that adding coffee grounds to your garden will make your soil incredibly acidic, eventually burning your plants. Let us clear this up right now. While fresh, unbrewed coffee beans are quite acidic, the acid is completely water-soluble. That means when the barista runs hot water through the grounds to make a cup of coffee, all that acid ends up in the cup, not in the leftover grounds. The spent coffee grounds that cafes throw away are actually very close to a neutral pH. What they are, however, is a spectacular source of organic nitrogen, sitting at around 2% by volume. Nitrogen is the fuel that drives explosive green leafy growth in your garden. By asking your local barista to save a bucket of grounds for you, you are securing a free, premium, slow-release fertilizer that will keep your plants lush and vibrant. To apply these coffee grounds the smart way, you have to avoid the most common lazy mistake. Do not just dump a massive thick pile of wet coffee grounds right at the base of your tomato plants. If you do that, the fine particles will dry out and lock together, forming a solid crust that actually repels water, acting almost like a waterproof roof over your plant roots. Instead, you want to think of coffee grounds as a potent seasoning. Sprinkle them lightly over the surface of your mulch, exactly like you are dusting powdered sugar over a cake. As it rains, the nitrogen will slowly wash down into the root zone, providing a steady, gentle feeding that will not burn tender roots. Alternatively, coffee grounds are the absolute perfect activator for a lazy compost pile. If your compost consists mostly of dry brown leaves and is taking forever to break down, simply toss in a large bucket of cafe coffee grounds. The high nitrogen content will cause the bacterial activity to explode, heating up your compost pile dramatically and turning those dead leaves into rich, black humus in a fraction of the normal time. Moving on to our third discarded treasure, we need to visit your local bakery or the deli counter at the grocery store. These places receive their frosting, cooking oils, and bulk ingredients in heavy-duty 5-gallon plastic buckets. Once the frosting is gone, they usually just toss these buckets into the recycling bin or the dumpster. If you buy a similar-sized plastic planter at a garden center, you are easily spending $15 or $20. But those cheap retail planters become brittle and crack after just one season in the hot summer sun. The buckets from the bakery, however, are made from high-density, food-grade polyethylene. They are virtually indestructible, designed to withstand heavy industrial transport, and most importantly, they are guaranteed to be 100% safe for growing food, leaching absolutely zero toxic chemicals into your soil. By simply smiling and asking the bakery manager if they have any empty icing buckets they are willing to part with, you can quickly accumulate an entire fleet of premium container gardens without opening your wallet. These bakery buckets are the foundational building blocks for the ultimate lazy watering system. Instead of drilling holes directly in the bottom like a traditional pot, you're going to drill your drainage holes exactly 2 inches up from the base on the sides of the bucket. Then you fill the bottom 2 inches with small rocks or coarse wood chips and fill the rest of the bucket with a good potting mix. What you have just created is a self-watering reservoir system. When you water your pepper or eggplant from the top, the excess water flows down and pools in that bottom 2-inch zone before draining out the side holes. The roots of your plant will reach down into this reservoir and drink exactly what they need, precisely when they need it, much like a camel storing water for a long journey across the desert. This brilliant setup means you no longer have to stand out in the hot sun watering your plants every single day. Your plants will survive brutal heat waves effortlessly, drawing up consistent moisture from below, resulting in larger, juicier fruits and significantly less stress for both the plant and the gardener. Our fourth hidden treasure requires a quick trip to a local coffee roaster. I am not talking about the cafes that brew the coffee, but the places that actually roast the green beans. These facilities go through hundreds of large, heavy burlap sacks every single week. These sacks are made from natural jute fiber, woven tightly enough to carry heavy loads, but porous enough to breathe. Most roasters just throw them out. But for the smart gardener, these sacks are a miracle material. Think about the cheap plastic weed mats they sell at big box stores. Those synthetic mats trap heat, suffocate the soil biology, and eventually shred into a million pieces of microplastic that you can never remove from your garden. Burlap, being a natural plant fiber, does the exact opposite. It provides excellent weed suppression while allowing vital oxygen and rainwater to easily pass through to the roots below. It is incredibly durable, entirely organic, and offers a beautiful rustic aesthetic to your garden pathways that expensive synthetic options simply cannot match. The easiest way to use these burlap sacks is to create zero-maintenance walking paths between your raised vegetable beds. Simply lay the bags down flat over the weeds or grass in your pathways and toss a thin layer of free wood chips over them to hold them in place. The burlap acts as an immediate, dark shield, stopping all weed seeds from germinating. Over the course of 2 or 3 years, the jute fibers will slowly decompose, adding rich organic matter right back into the earth. But that is not their only superpower. If you live in a colder climate and have recently planted young fruit trees, the harsh winter winds and freezing temperatures can easily damage the tender bark. Instead of buying expensive synthetic tree wraps, simply take a burlap sack, cut it into long strips, and wrap it gently around the trunk of your young apple or peach tree. It acts like a warm, breathable winter coat, protecting the delicate cambium layer from frost cracking while ensuring the bark still gets the air circulation it needs to stay healthy. For our fifth item, we are heading over to the local wood-fired pizza restaurant. Every night, these restaurants sweep out their massive ovens and throw away pounds and pounds of pure, fine wood ash. For thousands of years, long before synthetic chemicals were invented in laboratories, farmers knew that wood ash was one of the most valuable fertilizers on the planet. When a log burns, the nitrogen and sulfur go up in smoke, but what is left behind in the ash is a highly concentrated dose of potassium, calcium, and magnesium. Potassium is the absolute critical element that fruit trees and vegetable plants need to produce large, sweet, abundant fruit. It is the mineral responsible for moving water and sugars throughout the plant tissue. When you see a tomato plant that produces tons of green leaves but refuses to set any actual tomatoes, it is almost always crying out for a boost of potassium. By collecting this free, clean wood ash from a restaurant that only burns untreated hardwood, you are securing a lifetime supply of the exact mineral your plants need to trigger a massive harvest. However, applying wood ash requires a little bit of smart gardening knowledge because it does come with a catch. Wood ash is highly alkaline, meaning it will raise the pH of your soil. This makes it an absolute godsend if you live in an area with naturally acidic soil or heavy clay, as it acts exactly like agricultural lime, sweetening the earth and making nutrients more available to your crops. The lazy and effective way to apply it is to wait until early spring, right before the rain starts. Take a handful of ash and sprinkle it lightly around the drip line of your apple, plum, or cherry trees. The drip line is the imaginary ring on the ground where the furthest branches end. The spring rains will wash those potent minerals right down to the feeder roots, just as the tree is waking up and preparing to bloom. Just remember the golden rule of wood ash. Because it raises pH, you must never put it near plants that love acidic soil, like blueberries, azaleas, or potatoes. Use it wisely, and it will be the greatest free fertilizer you ever find. Now, let us tackle the sixth item on our list, which addresses one of the most frustrating ironies of modern gardening. Every single day, your local grocery store tosses out hundreds of pounds of spoiled produce. We are talking about bruised apples, slightly slimy spinach, overripe bananas, and wilted lettuce. The store pays a garbage truck to haul this organic matter to a landfill where it creates methane gas. Then, we gardeners drive to the same store and pay $10 a bag for compost to feed our plants. It is completely backwards. That spoiled produce in the dumpster is essentially pre-digested plant energy, packed with the exact vitamins, minerals, and moisture your garden desperately needs. It is raw material waiting to be transformed. If you speak to a produce manager and offer to take a few boxes of their organic rejects off their hands, they are usually thrilled to reduce their waste disposal fees. You instantly become the proud owner of premium, nutrient-dense organic matter, completely bypassing the commercial compost industry. But how do we process all this free food waste without doing the back-breaking work of constantly turning a massive, smelly compost pile? We use a brilliant, lazy technique called trench composting. Instead of maintaining a separate pile, You simply let the earthworms do all the work directly inside your garden beds. In the late fall, or any time you have an empty spot in your raised bed, grab your shovel and dig a simple trench about 12 inches deep. Dump a thick layer of that chopped up, spoiled grocery store produce right into the hole, and then immediately cover it back up with the soil you just removed. That is it. You are done. Underground, hidden from flies and scavengers, this decaying fruit becomes an irresistible buffet for the soil biology. Earthworms will travel from all over the garden to feast on this buried treasure, leaving behind rich, dark castings in their wake. By the time spring rolls around and you are ready to plant your seedlings, that buried garbage will have miraculously transformed into the finest, blackest, organic fertilizer imaginable, right where the roots will need it. Item number 7 is a structural game changer that you can find stacked up behind almost any hardware store, plumbing supply shop, or large retail outlet. I am talking about wooden shipping pallets. These sturdy wooden platforms are used to transport heavy goods, and once the goods are unloaded, the pallets are often discarded or left out for anyone to take. Building raised beds or buying wooden trellises from a catalog can cost hundreds of dollars, but with a little bit of smart sourcing, you can get the lumber for free. The vital secret here is knowing how to read the stamp on the side of the pallet. You must look for a stamp that says the letters HT. This stands for heat treated, which means the wood was baked in a kiln to kill pests, making it completely safe to use around food. If you see the letters MB, run away. That stands for methyl bromide, a highly toxic chemical pesticide that you absolutely do not want anywhere near your organic vegetables. Stick to the heat-treated pallets, and you have an endless supply of free, sturdy timber. The absolute best lazy way to use these safe pallets is to create a free vertical garden that saves both space and your lower back. Start by standing the pallet upright on its long edge. Take some of that free cardboard or landscape fabric we discussed earlier and staple it securely to the back, bottom, and sides of the pallet, leaving the front slats open. Next, pour a high-quality potting mix right into the top until the entire inside of the pallet is tightly packed with soil. Now, simply tuck your strawberry bare roots or small lettuce seedlings directly into the horizontal gaps between the wooden slats on the front. What you have just created is a stunning, vertical growing wall. Because the plants are elevated, you can harvest your sweet strawberries while standing comfortably upright, never having to bend over or kneel in the dirt. Furthermore, because the fruit hangs down over the clean wood instead of resting on the wet ground, you will see a massive reduction in slug damage and fruit rot. It is maximum yield and zero square footage for free. Let us explore the 8th treasure, which is sitting in the kitchen of every breakfast diner and local bakery. These businesses crack hundreds of eggs every single morning, tossing mountains of eggshells straight into the trash. For the home gardener, eggshells are the holy grail of a very specific, critical mineral. They are made almost entirely of pure calcium carbonate. Calcium is the essential building block for strong plant cell walls, acting much like the bones in our own bodies. If you have ever grown beautiful, large tomatoes, only to turn them over and find a disgusting black sunken rot on the bottom, you have experienced the heartbreak of blossom end rot. This devastating condition is almost always caused by an inability of the plant to access enough calcium during rapid fruit development. By establishing a relationship with a local diner to collect their discarded eggshells, you are securing a free, infinite supply of the exact mineral required to stop this disease in its tracks and guarantee perfect, flawless tomatoes and peppers. However, using eggshells correctly requires busting a very common lazy gardening myth. You cannot just crush eggshells in your hands, toss the large jagged pieces onto the surface of your garden, and expect results. Those large pieces will sit in your soil for 5 long years before breaking down enough for a plant to absorb the calcium. To unlock this treasure, you need to turn it into an instant calcium bank. First, spread the shells out on a baking sheet and bake them in your oven at a low temperature until they are completely dry and slightly toasted. This neutralizes any lingering bacteria and makes them incredibly brittle. Next, throw them into a cheap coffee grinder or an old blender and pulse them until they become a fine powdery dust. Now you have a bioavailable calcium supplement. When you plant your tomato seedlings in the spring, simply sprinkle 2 tablespoons of this fine powder directly into the bottom of the planting hole. The roots will have immediate access to the calcium as they grow, ensuring healthy cell division and totally eradicating blossom end rot for good. Our 9th free treasure requires a little bit of a rescue mission mindset. At the end of every spring and summer season, massive big-box home improvement stores throw away thousands of live fruit bushes, berry canes, and perennial herbs. Why? Because the teenage employees forgot to water them for a few days, and the leaves started to look a little yellow or crispy. The store's policy is often to just write off the inventory and toss these plants into the compactor, because they no longer look perfect for retail display. But underneath that slightly wilted foliage, the root systems are usually completely alive and desperate for a second chance. If you speak politely to the garden center manager and point out the dying plants on the clearance rack, they will very often let you take them for a few pennies, or sometimes completely for free, just to get them out of the way. You are essentially adopting the building blocks of a permanent perennial food forest that will produce food for decades without paying the premium retail price. When you get these rescued, sad-looking plants home, do not just casually stick them in the dry dirt and hope for the best. You need to perform a simple rehabilitation process. First, fill a large bucket with water and submerge the entire plastic pot into it. Let it sit there for an hour until the dry, hydrophobic root ball is completely rehydrated and heavy. Next, grab your sharp pruning shears and be ruthless. Cut away any dead, crispy, or diseased branches, even if it means cutting the plant back by half its size. This might feel harsh, but it is actually a vital survival tactic. By removing the excess top growth, you are redirecting all of the plant's remaining energy downward into establishing a strong, healthy root system in your garden bed. It is the classic metaphor of the phoenix rising from the ashes. You plant that pruned, fully hydrated root ball into the earth, cover it with a thick layer of mulch, and walk away. By the time next spring arrives, that rejected, ugly little stick will explode with vigorous new growth, rewarding your kindness with a massive harvest of free berries. Finally, we arrive at our 10th item, which you can easily find in massive quantities at any local office building, shipping center, or even your own home office. I am talking about large bags of shredded paper. Most people look at shredded office documents or ripped up newspapers and see nothing but useless trash. But remember our lesson about the soil food web. Paper is simply wood that has been heavily processed. It is an incredible, pure source of carbon. Many gardeners spend a small fortune buying specialized bales of clean straw or hay to mulch their garlic beds or insulate their soil over the winter. Those bales are heavy, expensive, and often carry hidden weed seeds that will cause you endless headaches later. Shredded paper, on the other hand, is completely weed-free, lightweight, and absolutely free for the taking. The modern inks used in almost all commercial printing today are soy-based and entirely safe for the garden, meaning you can confidently use this waste product to build your soil structure without fear of toxic chemicals. The trick to using shredded paper lazily and effectively is managing its weight, because the last thing you want is a light breeze blowing your free mulch all over the neighborhood. The best way to use it is as a moisture-retaining base layer. Lay the shredded paper down thickly, about 3 inches deep, around your established plants like onions, garlic, or tomatoes. The moment you lay it down, take your hose and soak it thoroughly with water. The wet paper fibers will instantly bind together, forming a breathable papier-mâché crust that locks tightly onto the soil surface. To make it look beautiful and keep it completely secure, lightly top it with a thin layer of grass clippings, compost, or the coffee grounds we discussed earlier. This smart layered system acts like a protective blanket. It shields the delicate soil biology from the brutal baking rays of the summer sun, reducing water evaporation so significantly that you might only need to water your garden once a week. It is the ultimate free climate control for your crops. When you step back and look at everything we have covered today, the entire paradigm of gardening shifts. You realize that you do not need a massive budget to grow a tremendous amount of healthy organic food. The very things that commercial businesses consider useless garbage, the cardboard, the coffee grounds, the bakery buckets, and the spoiled produce, are the exact foundational elements needed to build a thriving, self-sustaining soil food web. By intercepting this waste, you are saving money, saving your back from endless digging, and rescuing precious resources from the landfill. The real plot twist here is that the laziest way to garden, working in harmony with nature's decomposition cycle, is actually the most productive. The correct preparation you do today with these free materials will literally save you years of weeding, watering, and fertilizing in the future. Your garden will become a resilient, independent ecosystem that practically grows the food for you. Thank you so much for watching and spending time in the garden with me today. If these smart gardening secrets gave you some new ideas, please hit that subscribe button and leave a like to help our community grow. Now, I want to hear from you. Which of these 10 free items are you going to hunt down first for your garden, or do you have a secret free resource of your own? Drop your answer in the comments below, and I will see you in the next video.